Hi everyone. In this video, I wanted to expand on the previous video that I made when I talk about my art patterns, and I want to talk about the place that I come from a bit to give even a further context into my art, and give a bit of background about the place that I come from and the culture, and try to reach really far in time, so people can see a bit more connection between my past and the art I'm trying to create right now. So I come from a place called Braila. Braila is in the eastern Europe, in eastern Romania. It's on the Danube River. The Danube River is one of the main rivers that goes through Europe, and starts in Germany and then just goes all the way and just spills into the Black Sea through Romania and Eastern Europe. And it has a very important part of Europe. Why? It's because if we do look further in time, and if we try to think the way it is in North America, who are the first nations of Europe? Who are the first people of Europe? Who are the so-called indigenous people of Europe? And of course, we do have the Neanderthals, and what happened and how we became Homo sapiens, and the whole history of Africa. But I wanted to bring new information onto the playing field from Eastern Europe, from the Balkans, information that perhaps has been largely ignored in the West, and information that it's important to connect the culture. So start to speak about the place that I come from, Braila, in Eastern Europe, and on the Danube River. And if we go farther in time, we realize that this area was called as the Europe, is known as Old Europe, and a lot of ceramics and sculptures and artifacts have been unearthed from this part of the world in the last 30 or so years, which completely throws a lot of history, already known history, out of the playing field. Is because what's happening is that this new information is completely challenging what we knew about Europe, what we knew about Old Europe. And I will put a documentary and all the information below this video, so you can access that information yourself and further see what I'm talking about. So first I want to talk about this culture. There was a culture of people starting across the Danube. It's known as the Old Europe, like I said before, and these were a majority of small cities and tribes, and they went all along the Danube and went all the way to Ukraine, and the civilizations of people went all the way to China. Like they have found vases with patterns that are similar all the way in China to Cucuteni, Romania. And they're very interesting. They found Yin and Yang 1,000 years older than China. They have found swastika, which is older than even the Nazis were unearthed and found this kind of culture. They thought that these are the Aryans, but the truth is that there were many types of tribes, many varied all across the Asia and all the way to Asia, as proven. And it wasn't just a simple, they thought that the Germans and so-called Nazis, the Nazis thought that the Aryans were just the civilization. But the truth is that the civilization, this Danube civilization, is showing to us that there were many civilizations with cities up to 50,000 people, some of them in Ukraine. And some of these people were completely different races. Some of them were blonde. Some of them, like I said, these were going all the way to China. And what we know about them is through the artifacts that have been unearthed. And there's a lot of Venuses, like Venus of Willendorf, like all these sculptures that have been found of faceless or very basic faced sculptures of women with big breasts and like completely covered with like old old symbols, and they found about 200 symbols, and they found these little tablets in Sinai and Romania, and another one they found in Tartaria, and the Sumerians, because as is known right now, the Sumerian is it's the most ancient civilization, and these new theories is throwing that out of the water, because it's just challenging the idea that the cuneiform was the first language, which, as proven from these artifacts, it was not. And now, because of this whole challenging of world knowledge and information and all this stuff, is completely decentralizing everything, right? So I wanted to present this new information to whoever's following me, and show how this new information that is 8,000 years old is affecting my work, right? And the symbols, how the symbols are, I always go back to them to reflect on my work, and this indigeneity of Europeans, as these people were the first people of Europe. I'm not saying that they're Romanians or the Ukrainians or now, but they were 8,000 years ago or so, right? Of course, I'm not denying what's happening in Stonehenge or the Cave of Lascaux or any of this information. I'm not denying any of it, but at the same time, we cannot deny what we found recently. So again, in the Balkans, have found the first wheel ever discovered, and they have found Yin and Yang older than China, about 1,000 years old. They have found swastika and many other symbols, and they noticed that the archaeologists found that these people are building houses, some of them with 2 floors, and they had a very, very interesting society. And the theory is, there's a bunch of people having a bunch of archaeologists, each kind of brings a new theory, and each is unveiling more and more about these people. But it is known that they did have a lot of knowledge, for people that would, even before Sumerians, even before the Egyptians, people who were supposedly to be so archaic actually had a lot of knowledge of building, of agrarian society. And the most interesting thing about them is that they used to move houses, so they would burn everything to the ground, fact which is already still unknown up to why they were doing this, but they were destroying their everything and then just moved camp. And another theory that surrounds this is, they were matriarchal, but evidence has been found they were matriarchal as well as patriarchal, and is this symbiotic of these societies, which is very have dumbfounded archaeologists, because truly all societies, as we know, it's a struggle of civilizations, right? And as it goes, the struggle of civilization, there was tribal war, there was territories, all these things going on. But when we look closer to societies, we notice that even though they were tribal society, even though they were really spanned all the way across Asia, very interesting, they were actually it was this knowledge that they sent to one each other, which really supported them, which made them grow. And very interesting to me, it reminds me of what I talked in the previous video, where how the sharing of information, you can go back and see my previous video where I talk about the loop patterns, and and how these information is what really propels civilization to move forward. So for all these cultures, some people call them Vinca for the place, Cucuteni, Tripolie, so they have many names given from the places where they found the artifacts. So but But these civilizations, of course, they extended much more than we know now, and of course, the cities and whatever they built is not the same anymore. But what we do, we can from the artifacts, people can start theorizing. But history is not like science, so you can never know anything exact because you're trying to, especially something as far as 8,000 years. It's just like impossible to reconstruct with utmost accuracy. But given what we have, the symbols and whatnot, we can we can deduce from the things that we have. So the place that I'm from, Braila, interestingly enough, we were also occupied by the Ottomans for about 300 years. So that also plays in my culture. So what I'm trying to say is that in the place that I come from, and all these civilizations before, and the people they came after, like the Slavs, like the Goths and whatnot, it's layered with culture. So the thing about the Balkans, right, as a place, it's always seen like the negative word, Balkanization, right? The idea is that the Balkans, it's this bad place that people don't get along and everybody's fighting tribal war. But if you look closer and you know the history of the place, you realize that it's the facts of history. It's the fact that everything comes from the Balkans, like from, you name it, all the civilization. The Egyptians got it from the Greeks got it from somebody else, right? And so on and so forth. They got some information from the Egyptians, but the Egyptian already got it from somebody else. And the Sumerians got it from somebody else, and we're starting to uncover more and more who was the first, right? And from our knowledge, this is where the first wheel, this is where the first writing is coming from. So that's why I'm going back to these civilizations, because they were sitting literally at the center of the earth, like at the center of the known civilization, at the time, all the around the Balkans going up to Ukraine, Georgia, that kind of area, around all the way to China, right? And that's where it seems to a lot of civilization formed there as well. It went down to the Middle East, Sumeria, and then you have the whole Bible and everything, right? But these geometrical patterns, this culture had these geometrical patterns, which you can still find now. You can go throughout the Balkans and you can still find these symbols that and some of these the Serbians and the Cyrillic, they're using some of those symbols. They were used in still today to this Vinca, the Vinca used 8,000 years ago. What's really interesting about that is that knowing the Balkans, understanding the culture of these people and the tribal and how this formed, will have a better understanding how we can help our multicultural society here in the West. Because the truth is that we have been only multicultural here for the past couple hundred years, but in the Balkans they've been multicultural for the last 8,000 years. So the what I'm trying to say here is that we should look up to the Balkans. We should see the Balkans as a model, because sooner or later we're all going to be Balkanized. We're all going to be multicultural. We're all going to be, so why not learn from them? Why not learn from the Balkanic people rather than use such a negative term as Balkanization to describe a society, to describe the cultures of the Balkan? Because right now there's so many cultures in the Balkans, right? And so many religion, culture, you name it, the political challenges, tribes, all these cultures, they came on, and it completely like changed the face of society there. And that's why you have all these tribes right now. From there's a bunch of tribes, and Romanians themselves. I'm Romanian, and myself, I speak a few languages, Romanian, because we're Romanian, speak a bit of Italian, and language can also help me understand this, how we formed and how we, different societies, different tribes. As if I go from my place where I'm from Braila, I go like 2 hours north, people speak completely different. They're the Moldavians there, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that right now in Canada, where I live, people don't have a very different accent. If you go for East Coast, West Coast, they can't tell the difference, right? But through time, this is going to happen here as well. So what I'm trying to do with my art, I'm trying to bridge bridge cultures, right? Bridge cultures, bridge people's understanding of each other that come from different cultures. They have a different religion. They have a different upbringing. They have different views, different ideas of the world. What other place than rich with ideas that we can look up to other than the Balkans, right? Because the bottom line is that sooner or later, right, this global village, it does make us to be in contact with each other. So these not properly understanding our history and not properly understanding where we come from and how we made connections can really lead to a band. Because I think the conflict, main conflict what people have comes from it comes from misunderstanding. That's what conflict really is. If people would understand each other better, it would be less conflict. And understanding each other. That's why I'm trying to dive deep into the history and use my art. Use my art to basically explain that and explain how things can grow and how information can help people to improve societies and cultures. So please follow and subscribe to the below, and please follow me and follow me on Facebook or Instagram and thank you very much for watching this, and check out the videos that I'm going to post below. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye bye.